Swami Vivekananda continued, "It is a man-making religion that we want. It is a man-making education all around that we want. It is a man-making theories that we want. And here is the test of truth. Anything that makes you weak physically, intellectually, and spiritually, reject as poison. There is no life in it. It cannot be true. Truth is strengthening. Truth is purity. Truth is all knowledge. Truth must be strengthening, must be enlightening, must be invigorating. Give up these weakening mysticisms and be strong. The greatest truths are the simplest things in the world, simple as your own existence. Therefore, my plan is to start institutions in India to train our young men as preachers of truth, the truth of our scriptures in India and outside India. Men, these are wanted. Everything else will be ready. But strong, vigorous young men, sincere to the backbone, are wanted. 100 such and the world becomes revolutionized. The will is stronger than anything else. Everything must go down before the will, for that comes from God. A pure and strong will is omnipotent. If the Brahmin has more aptitude for learning on the grounds of heredity than the pariah, spend no more money on the Brahmin's education, but spend all on the pariah. Give to the weak, for there all the gift is needed. If the Brahmin is born clever, he can educate himself without help. This is justice and reason, as I understand it. For the next 50 years, let all other vain gods disappear from our minds. This is the only God that is awake. Our own race, everywhere the Lord's hands, everywhere His feet, everywhere His ears. He covers everything. All other gods are sleeping. Why should we vainly go after them when we can worship the God that we see all around us? The first of all worships is the worship of the One through all of those around us. These are our God, men and animals, and the first gods we have to worship are our own countrymen. These stirring words did not fall on deaf ears. The spirit of India vibrated to the Swami's call. India became aware of the power of the soul, of God sleeping in man, and of His illimitable possibilities. Ramakrishna and Vivekananda were the first awakeners of India's national consciousness. They were India's first nationalist leaders in the true sense of the term. Ramakrishna was the power and Vivekananda the voice. The movement for India's liberation started from Dakshinas War. The subsequent political leaders of the country, consciously or unconsciously, received their inspiration from Vivekananda's message, and some of them openly acknowledged it. The Bengal revolutionaries were ardent readers of Vivekananda's books, some of which were frowned upon by the British government. The uplift of the masses, the chief plank in Gandhi's platforms, was Vivekananda's legacy. Yet the militant Vivekananda was not a politician. He said, "Let no political significance ever be attached falsely to my writings or sayings." What nonsense! He had said as early as September 1894, and a year later he wrote, "I will have nothing to do with political nonsense. I do not believe in politics. God and truth are the only politics in the world. Everything else is trash." Swami Vivekananda longed for India's political freedom, but he thought of a free India in relation to her service to humanity. A free India would take her rightful place in the assembly of nations and make a vital contribution towards bringing peace and goodwill to mankind. Vivekananda's message was both national and international. While Swami Vivekananda was enjoying the restful boat trip from Madras to Calcutta, a reception committee was busy preparing for him a fitting welcome in the metropolis of India, the city of his birth. The steamer docked at Budge Budge, and the Swami and his party arrived by train in Calcutta on February 19, 1897. The reception was magnificent. With an enthusiastic crowd at the railroad station, triumphal arches, the unharnessed carriage drawn by students, and a huge procession with music and religious songs. A princely residence on the bank of the Ganga was placed at the Swami's disposal. On 28 February 1897, he was given a public reception. Raja Benoy Krishnadeb presided, and 5,000 people jammed the meeting. As usual, the Swami asked the people to go back to the perennial philosophy of the Upanishads. He also paid a touching tribute to Ramakrishna, saying, "My teacher, my master, my hero, my ideal, my God in life. If there has been anything achieved by me," he said with deep feeling, "by thoughts or words or deeds, if from my lips has ever fallen one word that has ever helped anyone, I lay no claim to it. It was his. But if there have been curses falling from my lips, if there has been hatred coming out of me, it is all mine and not his. All that has been weak has been mine. All that has been life-giving, strengthening, and pure and holy has been his inspiration, his words, and he himself. Yes, my friends, the world has yet to know that man." A few days after, he gave another public lecture on Vedanta in all its phases. Shortly after Swami's arrival in Calcutta, the anniversary of Sri Ramakrishna's birth was celebrated at Dakshineswar. Accompanied by his brother disciples, the Swami joined the festival. He walked barefoot in the holy grounds. Deep emotions were stirred up as he visited the temples, the master's room, the Panchavati, and other spots associated with the memory of Sri Ramakrishna. The place was a sea of human heads. The Swami said to one of Ramakrishna's lay disciples, Girish, "Well, what a difference between those days and these." "I know," replied Girish, "but I have the desire to see more." For a little while, the Swami spent his days at the palatial house on the river. Nights, however, he spent with his spiritual brothers at the Alambazar monastery. He was hardly at any rest. People streamed in at all times to pay him their respects, or to hear his exposition of Vedanta, or just to see him. There were also people who came to argue with him on scriptural matters and to test his knowledge. But the Swami's heart was with the educated, unmarried youths whom he could train for his future work. He longed to infuse into their hearts some of his own burning enthusiasm. He wanted them to become preachers of his man-making religion. The Swami deplored the physical weakness of India's youth, denounced their early marriage, and reproached them for their lack of faith in themselves and in their national ideals. One day a young man complained to the Swami that he could not make progress in spiritual life. He had worshipped images, following the advice of one teacher, and had tried to make his mind void according to the instruction of another. But all had been fruitless. "Sir," the young man said, "I sit still in meditation, shutting the door of my room, and keep my eyes closed as long as I can, but I do not find peace of mind. Can you show me the way?" "My boy," replied the Swami in a voice full of loving sympathy, If you take my word, you will have first of all to open the door of your room and look around instead of closing your eyes. There are hundreds of poor and helpless people in your neighborhood. You have to serve them to the best of your ability. You will have to nurse and procure food and medicine for the sick. You will have to feed those who have nothing to eat. You will have to teach the ignorant. My advice to you is that you, if you want peace, must have to serve others to the best of your ability. Another day, a well-known college professor who was a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna said to the Swami, "You are talking of service, charity, and doing good to the world. These, after all, belong to the domain of Maya. Vedanta says that the goal of man is the attainment of mukti, or liberation, through breaking the chain of Maya. What is the use of preaching about things which keep one's mind on mundane matters?" The Swami replied, "Is not the idea of mukti in the domain of Maya? Does not Vedanta teach that the Atman, the self, is ever free? Why should the self then strive for mukti?" On another occasion, the Swami said, "When I used to roam about all over India practicing spiritual disciplines, I passed day after day in caves absorbed in meditation. Many a time I decided to starve myself to death because I could not attain mukti. Now I have no desire for mukti. I do not care for it as long as a single individual in the universe remains in bondage." Swami Vivekananda often used to say that different forms of spiritual discipline were especially efficacious for different ages. At one period, it was the practice of austerities. At another period, the cultivation of divine love. And at a third period, it was philosophical discrimination accompanied by renunciation. But in modern times, he emphasized unselfish service of others. Karma yoga would quickly bring spiritual results. Therefore, he advocated the discipline of selfless action. He particularly advocated this discipline for the Indians because they were under the spell of tamas, or inertia. The Swami realized that only after cultivating raja, the other guna, would they be able to acquire sattva, the higher guna, and attain liberation. As regards himself, the Swami had already known mukti through the realization of oneness with Brahman in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But by the will of God, he had brought himself down to consciousness of the phenomenal world and lived like a bodhisattva, devoting himself to the welfare of humanity. Swami Vivekananda found it most difficult to convert some of his brother disciples to his new conception of religion and its discipline and method. These brother disciples were individualists, eager for their personal salvation. They wanted to practice austerities and penances, enjoy peaceful meditation, and lead a quiet life of detachment from the world. To them, God was first, and next the world. At least that was the way they understood Sri Ramakrishna's teachings. These young monks thought that for one who had taken the monastic vows, the world was Maya, illusion. Therefore, all activities, including the charitable and philanthropic, ultimately entangled one in worldly life. But Vivekananda's thought flowed through a different channel. Sri Ramakrishna had once admonished him to commune with God with eyes open, that is to say, through the service of the poor, the sick, the hungry, and the ignorant. During his days of wandering, the Swami had seen with his own eyes the suffering of the people and had felt the voiceless appeal of India for his help. In America and Europe, he had witnessed the material prosperity of the people, the dynamic social life, and the general progress made through science, technology, and organized action. Time and again, he remembered the words of Ramakrishna, who said, Religion is not for empty stomachs. To his brother disciples, therefore, he pointed out that the idea of personal liberation was unworthy of those who called themselves disciples of Ramakrishna, who was an incarnation of God. The very fact that they had received their grace of a Savior should have convinced them of their sure salvation. Their duty, he emphasized, was to serve others as the visible manifestations of God. He said that he wanted to create a new band of monks who would take not only the traditional vow of personal salvation, but also a new vow of service to humanity. The brother disciples who respected the superior spirituality of Vivekananda and bore him great love as the one especially chosen by the Master to carry on his work, obeyed him without always agreeing with him wholeheartedly. Thus, at his behest, Swami Ramakrishna-Ananda, who had been the keeper of Sri Ramakrishna's shrine for 12 long years after the passing away of the Master, regarding his worship as the supreme spiritual discipline, and had not been absent even for a single day from the monasteries at Baranagar and Alambazar, left for Madras to found a center for the propagation of Vedanta in South India. Swami Vivekananda went to Murshidabad to carry on relief work among the famine-stricken people there. Swamis Abhadananda and Sarada had already gone to America. As for himself, Swami Vivekananda was constantly talking to people, instructing them in the Upanishads, and enjoining them to cultivate the inner strength that comes from the knowledge of God residing in all human hearts. The strain of work and the heat of the plains soon told upon his health. At the advice of physicians, he went for a short change to Darjeeling in the Himalayas and felt somewhat refreshed. Returning to Calcutta, he again devoted himself to the work of teaching. Several young men, inspired by the Swami's fiery words, joined the order. 4 others who had been practicing disciplines in the monastery under the guidance of the older Swamis while Vivekananda was abroad were now eager to receive the monastic initiation formally from their great leader. His brother disciples expressed hesitation about one of them because of some incidents of his past life. This aroused Swami Vivekananda's emotion. He said, "What is this? If we shrink from sinners, who else will save them? Besides, the very fact that someone has taken refuge at the monastery in his desire to lead a better life shows that his intentions are good, and we must help him. Suppose a man is bad and perverted. If you cannot change his character, why then have you put on the ochre robe of a monk? Why have you assumed the role of teachers?" All the 4 young men received their monastic initiation. On the day previous to this sacred ceremony, the Swami spoke to them only about the glories of renunciation and service. He said, "Remember, for the salvation of his soul and for the good and happiness of many, a sannyasin is born in the world. To sacrifice his own life for others, to alleviate the misery of millions rending the air with their cries, to wipe away tears from the eyes of widows, to console the hearts of bereaved mothers, to provide the ignorant and depressed masses with ways and means for the struggle for existence, and make them stand on their own feet, to broadcast the teachings of the Scriptures to one and all, without distinction, for their spiritual and material welfare, to rouse the sleeping lion of Brahman, the absolute consciousness, in the hearts of all beings by the knowledge of Vedanta. For this a sannyasin is born in the world." Turning to his brother disciples, the Swami said, "Remember, it is for the consummation of this purpose in life that we have taken birth, and we shall lay down our lives for it. Arise and awake, arouse and awaken others. Fulfill your mission in life, and you will reach the highest goal." Then, addressing the aspirants for the monastic life, he said, You must renounce everything. You must not seek comfort or pleasure for yourself. You must look upon gold and objects of lust as poison, name and fame as the vilest filth, worldly glory as a terrible hell. Pride of birth or social position is as sinful as drinking spirituous liquor. In order to be teachers of your fellow men, he concluded, and for the good of the world, you will have to attain freedom through the knowledge of the self. From the following incident, one can learn the depths of Swami's compassion. Many inmates of the Muth thought that he was not very discriminating in the choice of his disciples. Almost anyone could obtain spiritual initiation from him after a little supplication, and some of them were found later to indulge in wicked actions. One of his own monastic disciples, Swami Nikhilananda, spoke to him about his lack of proper judgment and his inability to understand human nature. Swami Vivekananda's face became red with emotion, and he exclaimed, "What did you say? You think that I do not understand human nature? About these unfortunate people, I know not only all they have done in their present lives, but also what they did in their previous ones. I am fully aware of what they will do in the future. Then why do I show kindness to them? These hapless people have knocked at many doors for peace of mind and a word of encouragement, but everywhere have been repulsed. If I turn them down, they will have no place to go."